So my name is Diana Rodriguez Wallach. I am a young adult author. Small Town Monsters just came out in September, so it's about 1 month old, which is very exciting. And it is my first young adult horror novel. I've previously published 6 other young adult novels. The first 3 were YA contemporary romances. They called it Chica Lit. They came out in way back in 2008 and 2009. So I've been at this a long time. And then I followed those up with a couple of kids. And after that, I published another trilogy called the Anastasia Phoenix Trilogy that is young adult spy thrillers that take place all throughout Europe. And the first book in that, Proof of Lies, came out in 2017, and it was a finalist for the International Thriller Awards, which was very exciting. And then Small Town Monsters just came out through Random House. So it's my first book with the big 5, which is very exciting.
So I've got all kinds of questions for you, but obviously the place to start is I had read that a Salem, Massachusetts psychic predicted that you would go on to write children's books one day. What was that experience?
Yes. So I have listened to millions of authors and read millions of blogs where writers claim that they knew they were going to be an author when they were 2 years old and their mom published their first book when they were in preschool. And that was not my experience whatsoever. I was good at writing. I was always good at writing, and I was a journalism major in college. To me, it seemed like a very practical way to apply your writing skills to a 9-to-5 job where you would get paid. Not much, but still at least get paid. And I ended up going into journalism. I went to school in Boston University, and then I moved to New York City. I had 7 unpaid internships in college. So I was like prepared for this first job. I get there, I'm getting paid fairly decently for a reporter at that time. And then I didn't like it. So it's like, here I had all this experience, the whole degree, everything. When I get down to the job, I didn't like it. And at first I thought I didn't like what I was writing about. At the time, I was working for a hotel magazine. So I thought maybe I just didn't like writing about hotels or real estate. But then I just started to have this feeling that there was something else I was supposed to be doing with my life, and I hadn't figured it out yet. I was young at the time, right out of college, and they call it the quarter life crisis. So I was trying to figure out, what is this something else? But I knew I was going to need a big push to leave journalism. I'm a very practical person. It was all that I knew. And I got a very big push. 9/11 happened. And I lived 5 blocks from ground zero on September 11th. I was a year out of college. So if you're ever going to get a push to change your life, there is none bigger than that. And I had this really dark thought at the time over and over, because I was living on Wall Street, taking the Wall Street subway, and then getting out at work, which is One Penn Plaza, which is the skyscraper above Penn Station. So I was being evacuated all the time, constantly living in this 9/11 world. And I had this dark thought of how many people went to work that day and hated their jobs. And I was too young to resign myself to that. So I was determined to figure out what it was I was going to be doing, but I didn't know what that was going to be. But I did end up quitting that first job. So I was super excited. I got a different job as a reporter. I quit my first job, and my now husband and I take this vacation around New England. We go up to Salem, Massachusetts, right around this time of year. It was in October, right around Halloween. I'd never been there before, and I'd never seen a psychic before. And I wanted to give it a shot, so I go in, I sit down, and I'd seen all those 2020 specials where they sneakily record your wallet, and they're listening to your conversations in the lobby. So I was purposely being super cagey and making sure they had nothing to go on. So I sit down, and she's like, "What do you want to know about?" And I said, "My career." And she goes, "Okay, well, you're a writer." And I was impressed because it's not a very common profession. And I said, "Yes, I'm a writer." She asked, "Well, what do you write about?" And I didn't think I was supposed to tell her because she was a psychic, so she should know what I write about. So I just said business. I write about business. And she said, "No, I see you writing books, little books, like children's books." And I had absolutely never considered writing a book before in my life. But then, eventually my husband and I, are planning our wedding. We moved back to Philadelphia where we grew up. I'd forgotten all about the psychic. And then one night I have a dream. Wake up. It was around the time I was planning my wedding. So you're having all these really vivid dreams about forgetting your dress and no one shows up. And then I had this dream that I was a young adult author, and I dreamt the entire concept of a series of books based on my experience in middle school being bullied. And I tell my husband, and he said, well, don't you remember that psychic? And I had completely forgotten about it, but I was raised Catholic. So I was like, it's a sign. So I decided I'm going to come back from my honeymoon and write a novel. And that's how I started it. I just sat down with no ambition other than just to see if I could do it. I wrote for a living every day. I wonder if I just sat down and tried to write a book by the seat of my pants, what would happen? I do. I get to the end of it and I'm like, it's not bad. So I literally Googled how to publish a book and went to Borders, which existed at the time, bought a guide to literary agents, which was like a paper book, and started the process of trying to publish my first novel.
Good for you for writing the book first. If you start with how to publish, you might never write the book.
Well, I had once met a girl at a cocktail party who had told me she had written a novel. And she hadn't published it, but I was just so impressed by the fact that she had done it, that she had written a book. So I just wanted to see if I could do it. And honestly, I didn't tell anybody I was trying to write a book until after I got an agent. I didn't even tell my parents. So the only person who knew I was even giving this a shot was my husband. It was just sort of like this pipe dream I was doing on the side after work and really never expected to amount to anything. And now I'm here.
Were you a big reader as a young person?
Yes. So when I did end up getting an agent and I called my parents for the first time and I said, hey, I wrote a book. Their reaction was probably like any other parents. Like if I were to tell them I wanted to be like a Broadway actor or something, they were like, oh, that's great. Like that forced smile in their voice because it seemed so unrealistic. And then I said to them, it's a young adult novel. And they were like, oh, I see that now. I get that. Because I read tons of young adult growing up in middle school and high school, particularly like the R.L. Stine, Fear Street was huge in the 90s. All the Christopher Pike books, I devoured all of those. So it made sense to them when I said that. And even all of my friends are like, oh, this makes sense. My voice kind of just naturally comes out sounding like a teenage girl when I write. So it's not me ever struggling to find that teenage voice. I think it comes a little more naturally because I spent so much time in the young adult reader world as a kid.